My son called me the night before his restaurant opened to tell me not to come. The restaurant I had spent $62,000 building from a gutted laundromat on Birch Street. "Don't make a scene, Mom," he said. "Colette thinks it would be better if you weren't there." I held the phone for a long moment. Then I said 4 words I had never said to my son in 34 years. "I'll handle it myself." He didn't understand what that meant yet. By 8 o'clock the next morning he would. My name is Arlene Putnam. I'm 63 years old, and I have been sewing since I was 9, not as a hobby, as a living. I learned from my mother, who learned from hers, and together we ran a small alteration shop out of a converted garage in Mill Haven, Tennessee for most of my adult life. After my mother passed and my husband left, those 2 things happened in the same year, which I don't recommend. I was 41 years old with a 12-year-old son, a sewing machine that needed a new belt, and exactly 4 loyal clients who kept me going long enough to find 4 more. I built Putnam Alterations and tailoring the same way you build anything when nobody's watching and nobody's helping. 1 seam at a time. I took in wedding gowns, prom dresses, the kind of mending work that other shops turn their noses up at, because it wasn't glamorous enough. A retired postal worker's uniform resized after chemotherapy. A little girl's Easter dress let out 3 sizes before Sunday. Work that mattered to people. I was good at it. I got faster. I hired my first employee when my son Everett was in high school. A young woman named Phyllis, who could finish a hem in under 4 minutes and never once talked down to a customer. I hired 2 more the year Everett went to college. By the time he graduated, I had 6 employees, a lease on a proper storefront, and a waiting list. I tell you all of this not to brag. I tell you so you understand what $62,000 means when it comes from a woman who has spent 20 years bent over a machine. That is not a number I arrived at easily. That is every Saturday I worked instead of resting. That is the vacation I never took. That is the knee surgery I kept putting off. When my son told me he wanted to open a restaurant, I sat with the idea for 3 weeks before I said yes. And when I said yes, I did it the way I do everything. Carefully, in writing, with my name on the paperwork. Everett had the vision and the talent. I have never disputed that. He went to culinary school on a partial scholarship, and I covered the rest, and what he came out knowing about food was real. He could make a room smell like Sunday morning. His biscuits alone were worth a 40-minute drive. When he said he wanted to open a place in Hargrove County, our county, the one where people knew us, I believed in him without reservation. I want you to understand that before I tell you what happened next. I believed in my son completely. I still do, in the ways that matter. What I did not fully see was that my son had, somewhere in the 2 years since culinary school, gotten very focused on a particular image, his image. And the image he was building did not include a mother who sewed other people's clothes for a living. He met Colette Dre at a food industry networking event in Nashville. Her family owned 3 mid-range restaurant franchises in the Southeast. They weren't fine dining, but they had money behind them, and Colette had grown up understanding branding in the way that children of business owners often do, as a kind of armor. What you present is who you are. She was sharp and organized, and I think she genuinely cared about Everett. I also think she saw my son's talent and immediately started calculating how to package it, and that somewhere in that calculation, I became a problem. The first time I met her was at a dinner Everett arranged at his apartment, about 8 months before the restaurant opened. She was polished in the way that takes effort to look effortless. She shook my hand warmly and asked about my work with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Oh, alterations," she said. "That must keep you busy." Like it was a quirky pastime. Like I hadn't just handed her boyfriend's dream $62,000 of my quirky pastime money. After that dinner, the shift was gradual, the way these things always are. Everett started referring to me in conversation as, "My mom, she's in the garment industry," which is technically true. A landfill is technically in the landscape industry. I didn't correct him the first time. I should have. Colette took over the restaurant's concept design, the name, the logo, the aesthetic. All of it became very sleeky, very urban, very much aimed at a clientele that wore their success on the outside. The restaurant was called Elevation. Not Everett's, not Putnam's. Elevation. I told myself I didn't mind. It was his vision. My job was to support it. But here is the thing about letting people take. They always take a little more than you offered. I had signed the lease on the space myself. That is important. When Everett came to me with the location, a gutted laundromat on Birch Street with good bones and terrible lighting, he did not have the credit history or the capital to sign it alone. So I signed it. Arlene Putnam, lessee. I also signed the contractor agreement for the renovation. I wrote the check for the kitchen equipment, the commercial range, the refrigeration units, the prep tables. Every check came from my business account. Every receipt had my name on it. I did it that way not out of suspicion, but out of habit. I am a woman who has kept her own books for 20 years. I know what happens when things aren't in writing. My attorney is a woman named Cecily Marsh. She has handled my business contracts since I signed my first real commercial lease 12 years ago. When I brought her the stack of paperwork for the restaurant, she read every page, and then she looked at me over her reading glasses and said, "Arlene, you are the controlling party on all of this. You understand that, right? You could walk away from this whole thing and take the space with you." "Why would I walk away?" I said. "It's my son's restaurant." "No reason," she said. "Just make sure you remember where the door is." I thought about that a lot later, standing in the parking lot at 11:15 at night with my phone in my hand. The unraveling didn't announce itself. It was a series of small adjustments, each one reasonable on its own, each one a little more of me gone. Colette hired a PR firm to handle the restaurant's opening. The PR firm wanted a clear narrative. The narrative they built was about Everett, his culinary school training, his vision, his inspiration. There was a feature in the Hargrove County Gazette about the opening. Beautiful write-up. Not one mention of who had funded it, who had signed the lease, whose name was on the contractor agreement. Chef Everett Putnam brings elevated Southern cuisine to a brand new space on Birch Street. It read, with support from his partner, Colette Dre, whose family has deep roots in the regional restaurant industry. I read that sentence 3 times. I called Everett about it, gently. I said, "Sweetheart, they mention Colette's family, but not the lease, not the financing. I'm not asking for a trophy, I just thought." He cut me off the way he'd been cutting me off for months, not rudely, just quickly. "Mom, the PR firm knows what they're doing. It's about telling the right story." "The right story," I said. "The right story is the true one." He made a sound I'd never heard him make before, the sound of a person who has decided you are an obstacle. "Mom, please. Just let them do their jobs." I let it go. That time. The grand opening was planned for a Thursday evening. Private event. Invitation only. Local media, Colette's family contacts, food industry people. The following Saturday would be the public opening. I had assumed, without ever once thinking to question it, that I would be at the Thursday event. I had assumed this the way you assume the sun will come up. I had signed the lease on that building. I had funded the renovation, the kitchen, the small wares, the first month of payroll. Of course I would be there. 2 weeks before the opening, I called Everett to ask about the details. What time should I arrive Thursday? There was a pause, the kind of pause that means the words coming next were prepared in advance. "Mom, so Colette and I have been talking, and the Thursday event is really for industry people and media. It's going to be very curated, very on brand." I waited. "We thought maybe you could come to the Saturday opening instead." "With the public," I said, "with the public." "That's right." He said it like it was reasonable. Like I was any member of the public and not the reason the building had a commercial-grade exhaust system. I said, "Everett, I signed the lease on that building." "I know, Mom, and we really appreciate. I am on the deed for the kitchen equipment." "I know. So when you say on brand, what exactly is the brand that doesn't include me?" Another pause. "Mom, Colette feels like, and I agree with her, that the image we're going for is very specific. And she worries that if people know the funding came from, a seamstress," there it was. Not a cleaning lady, a seamstress. Different word, same sentence. He didn't finish it, but I did in my head. "She worries it won't look like Elevation. It'll look like someone's mom bailed them out." I said, "I see. Let me think about it." And I hung up. I have a friend named Roxanne who has worked in my shop for 11 years. She started as a hem technician, and now she manages the floor, orders supplies, handles the difficult customers with a patience I have never fully understood. She tells me the truth, the way people do when they've known you long enough to not be afraid of you anymore. I told her about the Thursday call. We were in the back of the shop, both of us with coffee, and she listened all the way through without saying a word. When I finished, she set her mug down very carefully and said, "Arlene, you are funding the people who are embarrassed by you. I know, you are paying for a party you are not invited to. I know. You signed the lease. I know." She shook her head slowly. "So sign something else." I drove home that night with her words sitting in my chest. I kept telling myself it wasn't as bad as it sounded. That Everett was nervous, that Colette was controlling but well-meaning, that the opening would pass and things would settle. I told myself this through dinner, through the news, through 2 cups of chamomile tea. Then my phone buzzed at 11:02 at night, and Everett made the decision for me. The text was short. It read, "Mom, Colette and I talked more, and we need you to not come Thursday. We'll have a seat for you at the Saturday public opening, family section. We just need this launch to go perfectly, and we need to control every variable. Please understand, we love you. We need to control every variable." I read it once. I put the phone face down on the kitchen table. I looked at the wall for a while. I thought about the woman I had been for 63 years. The woman who had sewn other people's clothes in a garage to keep the lights on. Who had driven Everett to every practice, every audition, every orientation. Who had signed the lease on a building on Birch Street because her son had a dream and she believed in it, and she had not once, asked for anything in return except to be present. A family section. At the public opening. At the restaurant I funded, I stood up. I went to the filing cabinet in my home office, the one I use for business documents, the gray one with the bent handle that I've meant to fix for 3 years. I pulled out the folder for elevation, the lease, the contractor agreement, the equipment purchase records. Cecily's number was in my phone. It was 11:17 at night when I called her. She picked up on the 3rd ring, already alert in the way that lawyers sometimes are, like they sleep with one ear open. "Arlene," she said. "Late call." "I know," I said. "I need you to hear something and tell me what I can do." I read her the text, all of it. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "What do you want to do?" "I want to know my options," she said. "You're the lessee on that space. The opening is in 2 weeks. The lease gives you right of entry as the responsible party until formal transfer or sublease, which has not happened. You could, theoretically, notify the landlord of a change in operating plans. You could also, and I want to be clear, I'm not advising this, I'm informing you, contact the vendors still under your name and put a hold on services." "What vendors are still under my name?" she said. "The linen service. They invoiced you directly last month. The small wares supplier. You haven't been reimbursed yet. That account is still open. And the security system, you set it up under your business account. The access codes are registered to you." I sat down at my kitchen table. "The security system access codes are registered to me." "Cecily," I said, "the opening is tomorrow night at 7. "I know," she said. "Arlene, are you sure? This is going to be significant." I looked at the lease document in my hand. My name was on the first line, the last line, and 7 places in between. "A variable," I said. "That's what he called me. A variable he needed to control. I am done being managed. Tell me how to do this legally and correctly," she told me. By midnight, I had sent written notification to the landlord. My landlord, because I was the one paying, that there were unresolved questions about the operating agreement for the space and requesting a brief hold on any third-party access the following day pending a conversation. By 12:20, I had contacted the linen service and put a hold on the delivery scheduled for Thursday morning. By 12:35, I had changed the security system access code. The old one, the one Everett and Colette had been using for weeks during setup, no longer worked. The new one was in my phone and nowhere else. Then I sent my son a text. It said, "I've thought about what you need to control. I'm a variable you forgot to account for. The lease is mine, The security code is mine, and I've put a hold on Thursday's linen delivery. When you're ready to talk about what my name on those contracts actually means, call me. I love you. Mom. I did not sleep well. I didn't expect to, but I did not cry, which surprised me. What I felt was something quieter than anger, something closer to the feeling I get when I've fitted a garment perfectly, and you can see that every line is right. A kind of settled correctness. Everett called at 7:08 the next morning. He was not calm. Mom, what did you do? The code doesn't work. Colette's, the linens didn't come. Mom, the event is tonight. I know, I said. I heard my own voice. Steady, the way you get steady after a bad night when the bad night has made up your mind for you. Everett, I said, I am the lessee on that building. I have been paying that lease for 14 months. I am on the contractor agreement, the kitchen equipment records, and the linen service account. Last night you sent me a text telling me I was a variable you needed to control and that you'd leave a seat for me in the family section at the public opening. Like I was someone you had to manage rather than the reason there is a restaurant to open. He started talking over me. Mom, that's not. Listen to me, I said. I am not asking to be celebrated. I have never asked you for credit or recognition or applause. All I asked was to be in the room at the opening of something I built with you, and you told me no. So, until we have a real conversation about what my name on those contracts means, the building is locked and the linens are on hold. That's not a tantrum. That's me remembering that I am not just your mother. I am your business partner, whether you put that in the branding or not. He went very quiet. Then he said, Colette is going to. I don't care what Colette is going to, I said. I love that boy. I love him now as I'm typing this. But in that moment, I was not going to let him finish that sentence with someone else's reaction as a reason for me to stand down. Everett, I said, I'll unlock that building the moment you call me back with an honest conversation. I am not your enemy. I am your mother, and I am your investor, and I deserve to be treated like both. He called back 40 minutes later, without Colette. The conversation was halting at first. The way conversations are when someone is choosing for the first time to say true things instead of managed things. He said, Mom, I think I have been letting Colette make decisions about you that I should have been making myself. I think I told myself it was about the restaurant, but it was actually about. He stopped. I waited. It was about me not wanting people to think I needed help, he finally said, that I couldn't do it myself. So I let her make you invisible because I was embarrassed that I needed you. And that's, he stopped again. That's not okay. No, I said. It isn't. He asked me to come Thursday. He said it plainly. No conditions. No family section. He said, I want you there when they walk in. I want people to know whose hands this came from. I unlocked the building at 10 that morning. The linens arrived by noon. I called Cecily and told her to stand down. She said, You know, most of my clients don't read their contracts that carefully. I've been reading contracts since before you passed the bar, I said. She laughed. Now let me tell you what happened, because I know you want the facts and not just the feeling, and I believe in giving people both. Colette arrived at the restaurant at noon and found me there. I was not in the kitchen, and I was not in the way. I was sitting at a corner table with a cup of coffee and the contractor's final inspection report, which I had been meaning to review. She stopped when she saw me. Her face went through several things in quick succession. Arlene, she said, I understand this morning was complicated. I set down my coffee. Colette, I said, I want to be straightforward with you because I think straightforward is the only thing that works between people like us. I don't want to fight with you. I want to be at my son's opening. I want to see the room filled up with people eating food he cooked. That's all I have ever wanted. She started to say something about the brand, about the image, about what the PR firm had built. I let her finish. Then I said, the lease on this building is in my name. The kitchen you are standing in was paid for with my money. The narrative your PR firm built erased that entirely, and I didn't say a word because I thought it was his day and I didn't want to make it about me. And then your version of not making it about me was telling me to sit with the public. So I am going to make you one offer, I said. You include me, not in the press materials, not in the logo, just physically in the room, as his mother and as the person who made this possible. And I will never once ask you to change your branding. I will not embarrass you. I will not introduce myself as the investor. I will sit at whatever table you put me at, as long as it is not the one by the kitchen at the back. Or, I said, we can have the other kind of conversation, the one where Cecily gets involved. And I've already kept her up past midnight once this week, so she's not in the best mood. Colette was quiet for a long moment. I watched her think. I have seen that expression before, on clients who come in insisting they need a size smaller than they are. Eventually the mirror wins. She said, you can sit at the front table. I'll tell the PR contact your family of the chef. That's true, I said. I am. The opening that Thursday was beautiful. Everett cooked a 6-course dinner that made 3 separate food writers go quiet in the way that means they're searching for words. The room was warm and full and smelled like brown butter and something with rosemary that I cannot name but will never forget. I sat at a table near the front with Roxanne, who I had invited, and who wore her good blazer and cried during the biscuits. When Everett came out to speak at the end of the evening, he thanked Colette. He thanked his culinary school instructors. He thanked the staff. And then he looked at the front table and he said, and I want to thank my mother, Arlene Putnam, who signed the lease on this building before it had a kitchen, before it had a name, before it had anything but a concept and a dream. She believed before anyone else did, and she built everything she has with these hands, and these hands built this too. He held up his own. I got these from her. I did not cry during the speech. I cried in the car afterward, alone, the good kind, the kind where the thing you've been holding finally has somewhere to go. Elevation has been open 7 months now. Everett bought me out of the lease over time the way we agreed. Fair terms, documented, Cecily approved. He is building something real, and he is building it as himself, not as a performance of himself, and that is the version I always wanted to see. Colette and I are not friends. We are cordial in the way that 2 people can be when they have agreed on terms and both kept them. She is good for the business side of my son's life. She is learning, I think, that I am not a variable. I am a constant. Roxanne asked me once, a few weeks after the opening, if I regretted the midnight calls, the locked building, the linen hold. I told her the truth. Not for a second. Because here is what I know after 63 years of fitting things that don't fit. You can let a seam pull for a long time without fixing it. But eventually, it tears. The only question is whether you are the one who decides where the tear happens, or whether you wait until the fabric makes that decision for you. I have been a seamstress my whole life. I know how to control a seam. My son knows it now, too. There is a framed square of fabric on the wall near Elevation's host stand. Everett put it there. It's a patch of the first tablecloth I ever sewed. A practice piece from when I was maybe 10 years old, crooked hems and all. Underneath it, in small letters, it says, Putnam hands built this. I walk past it every time I come in for dinner. The good kind of dinner. The kind where the person who built the table gets to sit at it.